All right, what's up? Happy Thursday, everybody. Good morning. PT on Ice Daily Show. Great to be here. Jeff Moore, CEO of ICE, faculty member for cervical spine management courses as well as lumbar spine. Coming live to you from both Facebook Live as well as from Instagram. Good to see everybody this morning. Thanks for being here for the Daily Show. What I want to jump into today, so Leadership Thursdays, right? I want to jump into probably one of the most common questions that I get traveling around, working with folks, coaching folks up, and that is, how do I move forward? Specifically, how do I make more money in my organization? How do I become more than a role player, right? How do I carve out more space? Like, that is a constant urge for those trying to kind of move up the ladder, right? And unfortunately, I really only have one answer to it. I want to share it, unpack it a bit today. And really, this is going to be a two-part series. So I want to have this conversation, and then next week, I want to chat about side hustle, right? What are my feelings on having a side hustle? Meaning sort of, working your primary steady gig while you're building the side hustle, and eventually your goal is to kind of hop over from the main gig over to the side hustle and have that be your primary source of income. Kind of what are my thoughts on that? I think it's an important topic. Certainly it's a popular avenue, and I want to chat about kind of my feelings on how to best execute or if to execute that. So we'll chat about that next week, and I won't give away too many of my thoughts because I have some strong ones on that, but I'll hold that back. Let's give the 30,000 foot view here first, and then we'll jump into that next week. So one of the most common questions being, how do I move forward? And really my only answer being, you've got to create a need and fill the need. Right? In other words, you've got to fuel selective growth, I guess is another way to say that, right? So you've got to create a need and you've got to fill a need. So take a second and think about the company you're currently working with or for, right? The company that you wish maybe you had a bigger role in. Okay. Are you currently, I'll pause, envision that company, right? Really think about it, right? If you have a couple going on, which one do you want to focus on? Right? And then ask yourself the question, are you currently carrying out a growth strategy for that organization? Like, do you have a specific plan on how to help grow that company, right? And how to carry out that plan? And are you currently carrying out that plan? Or are you just executing? Like, are you just checking boxes? Right? Really give that some thought, because I would argue that if you are not carrying out a plan within your organization to grow that organization, I would argue that your value within it is at best steady, possibly slightly declining, because as things move forward, things are changing, right? If you're just checking boxes and executing, I would argue that your value is steady at best. Now, don't mishear me, right? This does not mean that execution does not have value, right? We're not saying execution is not important, right? What we are saying, though, is it does not have any unique value, right? If you are just executing on the work that is generated by others or the growth that is generated by others, right, you are inherently replaceable and vulnerable, right? Because execution relies on other people generating work for you to be able to do, right? One of my favorite all-time quotes, I think Lou Holtz of Notre Dame said this: in this world, you're either growing or dying. Right? And it's as true in companies as it is for human beings. Like, you are either growing or you are dying. Like, I have never heard an executive, right, at any point in my career say, hey, you know what? I think that gal over there is really going to help us stay exactly where we are. We should really bump her up and consider a raise. Right? It's not how people think. Right? Everybody's always thinking about the future. Where are we going? Are we growing? Because if we aren't growing, we're dying. So people know that, leaders know that, so they're looking for people who have a growth strategy, right? Who are going to get them to that next place. Nobody wants to stay where they are. So they're looking at, are you helping them, right, meet the needs of where they are, or are you helping them go to where they want to be? And it's really when you're helping them go to where they want to be that you begin to carve out some unique value. So let's talk about the process of this. So if you can appreciate that being seen as someone who is a part of growth, not as someone who's a part of steady state, is valuable, right? How do you go about pulling this off, right? And I think it starts off a three-step process, right? But it starts off with studying your company. I'm always shocked with how many folks tell me, I really want to be a bigger part of this organization. But when you drill deeper, they don't have a great idea of what that organization's trying to do. And so I think, again, another good moment for self-reflection of, think about that company we thought about earlier. Do you really know where they're trying to go? And if not, you got to start asking questions, right? You got to start getting to those meetings. You've got to start inquiring at those staff meetings. Hey guys, over the next 6 months, where are we hoping to go? Where do we want to expand our footprint, right? What are our gaps, right? Where do we see opportunities to best the competition? Like, you've got to begin inquiring to get that idea of where is this company going, right? Now, once you have an idea of where they want to go, their desired growth areas, now you can begin to cross-check that list with your unique skill set. And this is where it gets highly relevant, right? So now that you know where they want to go, now you start figuring, okay, what is my unique skill set? Then you figure out where is that intersection between where this company wants to grow and where I'm particularly strong skill set wise. And then you begin to hammer out a strategy to grow the company in that area where you are uniquely skilled. Because once you've done that, right, and think about any number of places that could be. So if we want to stick to talking about rehab companies, although this is clearly true across any organization, right? If you want to talk about rehab companies, I mean, think about patient populations, right? So, I mean, let's say you've got some great hands, right? And you love doing upper cervical treatment, upper cervical manipulation. You're certified in dry needling. You're really good at diagnosing and treating cervicogenic headache. But your company's not seeing a lot of those folks, right? But they know there's a demand in that market. Right? You can now go out and actively grow your company's demand by marketing that specific space, a space where you are particularly good, right, at servicing. In other words, you're creating a need that you are best suited to fill. There's a million of these. I mean, if your company doesn't have any industrial health or corporate wellness contracts, right, and you want to get into that space, if you're an ATC and your company's got no connections with local schools or universities and you want to foster that area, the point is really figuring out where that intersection lies between where your company wants to grow and what your unique skill is, right? Because if you can go out and you can grow your company in that space and the demand is now there and you are particularly talented and uniquely qualified to fill that demand, you are now in a beautiful spot where you can argue for a piece of the pie that not only have you generated part of the incoming growth, but you're best suited to fill it. You're uniquely qualified to fill it, right? Now you've got negotiating chips, right? That you should be looked at as being someone who should get bumped up that ladder. Because now not only have you created growth, but you're uniquely qualified to fill it. So that process of understanding where your company wants to go, really knowing thyself, right? Knowing what are your unique skills and what are your unique interests and passions, being able to find the intersection of those two, and then putting your head down and creating growth in that space. And when the growth exists, helping to show your organization that you are uniquely qualified to fill it. That is the only way that I know for sure, right, routinely and consistently allows you to capitalize on upward mobility. Fueling selective growth, right? Creating that need and being the right person to fill it. But you've got to go through that process to get there. Now, a lot of people would say, well, Jeff, why don't I just open my own clinic then? Like if I'm doing this, like if I'm going out and getting the business and then I'm coming back and servicing it, like why don't I just run my own shop, right? And this will get more into next week. I don't want to give too much away on the side hustle talk because I'm looking forward to that. But I've got nothing, that's fantastic. Like if the uncertainty and the risk and some of that early hustle more excites you than scares you, like you feel like that's for you, well, by all means, right? And I would argue more importantly than that, at least from my perspective, is if you can tolerate kind of the isolation, right? Because I mean, to me, the biggest drawback of going alone isn't so much the financial repercussions. I always feel like we can put our head down and try harder and figure that out. What I think the biggest repercussion of going alone is in the early stages is that you're alone, right? You don't get to learn from great teammates. You don't get to watch things going on that you're not familiar with and grow in different spaces, right? And expand your clinical insight and your reasoning model and give you that bigger 30,000 foot view than you can develop alone. So if you're going to go it alone, just be aware that isolation is real. And I would argue that joining a team and doing this with a team can increase your probability of success, right? So like, I think about my time in Bozeman, Montana. So when I first took my first job in Montana, I love treating headaches, which is probably why I brought it up earlier. I just think it's something that cervicogenic, makes up 20% of the headache population. It's pretty easy to rule in and rule out. I mean, subjectively and objectively, like the criteria are pretty strong. It's fairly easy to know when someone at least has a component of cervicogenic headache. So I love treating it because it responds great to manual therapy, responds great to exercise. So I wanted to get after that population. Well, we were on campus at Montana State University, and my boss, David Coletta, had some great relationships with the physicians at MSU. So we went over and gave a headache presentation, and they just loved it. So now all these students who were coming in who had headache, they were sending all of them to us. So I knew that I had the ability to service the headache population. I knew that I enjoyed it, but I leveraged our organization's relationships that already existed to help me selectively grow that area so that I could then service it. So I think there's a lot to be said for being able to leverage past relationships, being able to leverage a brand in general. Like you go out in the community and you're saying, hey, I'm going to be able to help you with this. Well, if you're saying that I from here, and that from here is a company that folks have a really good feeling about, right? I from this organization want to help you with this. It's going to carry more clout than someone just going out and saying, I just getting this thing up and rolling would love to help you with this. So I think a lot can be said about leveraging that existing brand, right? As well as, of course, again, having this stability to do it. So while you're going after your perfect target market, you've also got some of that overflow coming at you that you can execute on, have some financial and overall stability to be able to grow the market you want, right, while treating everybody in the meantime, right? I really do believe, I guess I would wrap this up by saying, I really do believe that you can have the best of both worlds, right? Like, I mean, you can be on a team where everybody's learning from each other, where everyone's bouncing ideas off each other, all the while leveraging the relationships of that team to carve out your niche of people that you love to see, create demand in that area, service that demand, get upward mobility, all the while having stability. Like, I think that world is having a blind eye turn towards it, but I think that's a very viable way to go forward. But the key to making it all drive is that you embrace that you need to be creating growth all the while, right? Ultimately, executors are vulnerable because the moment that pipeline shuts off, I mean, if you think of that clinic who hires somebody because they've generated too much business and they need someone to see the patients, like if you just come in and see the patients, the moment something changes, the moment that pipeline cuts off, I guarantee you the people that generated the patients originally aren't going to be the ones that are leaving, right? You are inherently vulnerable when you are executing off of somebody else's growth. That is why we say that you eat what you kill only always, right? Regardless of how it's set up. I mean, that's more obvious in the I own my own shop, right? I'm getting my own business scenario. But do not underestimate the importance of that concept when you're inside of a larger team. And don't miss the chance to leverage the strength of that team, right? To create the growth, to be able to have the stability and get the best of both worlds. You eat what you kill only always, right? But it can be even that much more powerful when you have strength of size. So give that some thought. But most importantly today, really think about, are you growing the team that you're on? Do you have, regardless of what your position is, do you have a strategy and are you executing it? Is that execution noticeable to leadership? Like, are you growing the team that you're on? If you are not actively growing the team that you are on, you are not bringing much value to the team because anybody can execute on somebody else's work, right? And so you've got to realize how replaceable and vulnerable you are if you are just checking the boxes that everybody else can check. Now, when you are creating selective growth and you are the right person to service that growth, you are putting yourself in a very different position. Think about that. Think about where you are in your company. Hit me up with an email. I love chatting this stuff through, but think about those things. As for us, you guys, tomorrow I'm off to Orlando. So Advanced Rehab, we'll see you down there. Can't wait to get down to Orlando. Going to be a great course. I know that Mitch and Alan and the guys are going out to Minneapolis. They've got a sold out CMFA course with TPI, with Therapy Partners. I know Zach is going to be in his hometown in Charlotte, crushing a CMFA course down there. Sarah Heron's out of network practice course, also sold out. Starts this weekend. I think Sunday is the first meeting. I cannot wait to take that. So Sarah has built this incredible 8-week course. If you want to open up an out-of-network practice, I cannot wait until you all see this course. So this cohort's already sold out, but the next one is going to be, I think, in April, Yeah, it's either March or April, and then she'll have one more this year. The middle one is already almost sold out, and the last one's already filling up. So if you want to open up an out-of-network practice, we are excited to train you to do so. Sarah from Arrow Physical Therapy could not be a better leader. Modern management of the older adult is coming right up. I think we've got a huge cohort in there. I think we have 2 or 3 more spots. So a lot of things going on, folks. 2019 is here with a vengeance. Game On starts tomorrow. For me, flying down to Orlando, but launching a ton of courses over the next week or two. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk. Hope everyone's doing great. Thanks for being here on the Daily Show. I'll see you next Thursday. We are going to talk about side hustle, pros and cons. All right, guys, cheers. Have an awesome day.